I'm curious, how
Mhm.
did you get interested and involved in this? I know you co-founded the company.
Yeah, so I went through my own nutrition and weight loss journey when I was like 14. I actually joined a gym, started going for walks, and then saw my own dietitian right around that age. And I just got really interested in like what we eat, why we eat, what we eat, and the power that we have to change that so we feel our best. Obviously, at that age, you're not really sure about like, oh, am I going to study this? What am I going to do? But I went on to study nutrition, and I really got curious about the link between like the psychology and emotional aspect related to nutrition. And our decisions around food and our moods and our habits. And that's what stemmed me to learn more about that piece of it. So, like with Everlong, what we do is we focus on nutrition, habits, what you eat, right? The second piece of why are you making those food choices, your emotions, habits tied to food. So it kind of stemmed from my own journey, I would say, and just interest in learning more than just the what we eat aspect.
Wow, so it started when you were 14?
Yeah, I think I saw my first dietitian um, maybe even a couple years before that, but really at that beginning of high school is when I started to lean into exercising, feeling my best, kind of figuring out what worked for me nutrition wise, and went through my own weight loss journey. And then it all kind of grew from there.
Okay, so for you at that age, it was about weight loss.
It was initially, but I think as I learned more about nutrition, I saw how it can fuel. My mom was a marathon runner, and I had a lot of active people in my life, and I did sports. And so I started seeing the impact it has on how we feel and how we feel our bodies for exercise, and how our emotions and the mood are tied to what we eat. So it initially stemmed from that, but went to so much more pretty quickly.
Yes. Okay, great. I want to dive into all of that. But
Mhm.
let's start with eating healthy. Everybody, talks about eating healthy. What does that actually mean and what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think eating healthy, that just eat, 3 meals a day, balance and color, is something that's always been what doctors tell you, right? What you see online. But eating healthy has a different definition for everyone. Like what my eating healthy is different than you, different than the next person. And I think that's because we're all unique with not only our bodies and our actual needs, but our lifestyles, how busy are we? What does our day to day look like? Do we have families? And then more so than that, like our access to food, our education around how we were raised. There's a lot of different factors that go into a person's healthy eating. And if somebody's starting at, you know, zero and they have no nutrition knowledge and have a lot of, things to change in a diet in their day to day eating, that's going to look a little different than somebody that's, 50% of the way there and wants to just make a couple more tweaks. So I really think healthy eating, but you can't define it. It's different for every single person.
Are there certain foods that you recommend that everybody eats? And on the flip side, are there certain foods that you recommend everyone avoids?
I think for making sure what everybody eats, I would definitely say having, the things that are proven, right, to lead to long-term health. So adequate nutrients, vitamins, minerals, enough protein, enough fruits and vegetables to get those vitamins and minerals. And the reason for that is because there's study after study we've seen that healthy eating, balanced eating, that incorporates those things. It's a different degree for everyone, right? But when you can get to a point to incorporate those things, it reduces risk of lifestyle diseases that are linked to nutrition. So absolutely, I think focusing everybody, like I said, to whatever degree they can, on having adequate protein, on having adequate vitamins, minerals, nutrients, enough water, healthy carbs. Our body needs all those things. So I always recommend that for everyone, just different capacities. And then on the flip side of that, I think just, you know, I definitely take a all foods fit balanced approach, and there's absolutely room for foods we love. But we've seen, scientifically proven, and we've seen studies and research that eating higher processed, higher sugar, higher fat foods is going to lead to a risk of chronic disease over time. And if it's prolonged, right, if we're eating those for years on end, most likely you're going to have some form of a chronic condition related to nutrition. So those are the two things that I would say limit and definitely have. But obviously, with the, knowing that that's not, it's easier said than done. So it really depends on the person in terms of the kind of like that line I was saying, like, where are they starting?
Okay, so make sure that you limit sugar and fat, and you want to make sure that you get enough protein, minerals, and nutrients. I've actually seen a lot more people lately, just everywhere I turn. I feel like I see someone new sharing their blood test results and sharing different test results that they have done about levels of nutrients and vitamins and things. And everyone seems to be optimizing. Is there a
Mhm.
way that you recommend that people could find out, well, I don't know, like what minerals or nutrients I need more of or what I
Mhm.
should be eating to get those? So what do you recommend for that?
For that, I think absolutely having a provider, whoever that provider is, right? If it's a PCP, a nurse practitioner, a naturopath, a holistic practitioner, working with somebody to figure out what, or how, having them help you figure out what they recommend for you. I absolutely recommend blood tests, right? Whether that's getting your labs done in a traditional lab, or like I mentioned, if it's functional health, right? A naturopathic doctor, can they recommend you go a step further? Those are the biomarkers, like labs are the best way to find out where you are, but they do not share the whole picture. So the reason why I'm saying to work with another provider is because they'll go deeper. This is something we do, right? Our dietitians do. We go deeper with how are you sleeping? What's your stress level? Because those things will impact hormones. They'll also, you'll be able to tell by your mood, am I eating properly? Am I eating to feel good? So I think just a provider that's going to be able to do labs and kind of show you what's your baseline, where you're at, mixed with a provider, and whether that's the same person or you seek additional support that can work with you on the lifestyle changes, because both of those things have to coexist to be able to get your labs, get your biomarkers where you want them to be. If you work on eating for hormone health, but you're really stressed and sleeping 3 hours a night, that's not going to be a good match, right? You're not really going to move forward.
hmm Yeah, that actually brings me to another question I wanted to ask you about, because I know you talk about this, and that's why isn't nutrition just about food and macros anymore?
Mhm. That brings me back to the first point I made of we're all different and we all start at different places. And so if, we had somebody come in, right, that said, in the past, I've tried to get healthy. I've tried to lose weight. I've tried to reduce, stress in my life. And I am kind of back to square one. And we asked her, what have you been given as support in the past? And she said, really just a meal plan or a template that says, here, follow these 5, 10 foods. The person that gave her those, right, her provider, her old provider, they are not looking at the stress levels, the sleep. Like I mentioned, all of those things impact how you're going to feel and your body every single day. And so this person, we've actually been working with her for about 6 months. She is feeling better because we started with sleep, stress reduction, doing more things that bring her joy and happiness in her life. And we we didn't just look at what she's eating. Of course, that's a huge part, right? We're dietitians, we look at food. But more so than that, we're looking at whole person health. And within a couple weeks, right, of working with us, she started noticing improved energy, better sleep, fewer mood swings. And this is also just if somebody, there's a lot of great providers out there, but there's also people that aren't looking at these. So just kind of a way or a way to open your mind into thinking, what am I missing, right? If my provider is just giving me like a meal plan or telling me to eat this, what am I not doing that I should be doing that's going to help me feel better and improve my nutrition and energy overall?
Mm. So important, all of those factors. I just last week I was having the most difficult time sleeping. As I was sharing earlier, I was in LA recently and
Hmm.
I came back and I feel like my sleeping was just completely off, yet I was still waking up, the normal time I would with the sun and everything. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't getting in my normal hours. And so during the day, I was just craving things that were just like sugar and carbs.
Hmm.
right now I'm actually in a phase where I'm tracking everything. So, which is good
Yeah.
because normally I would give into those cravings and I would have no idea that I'd probably eat 500 or 1,000 extra calories. But I was still, feeling hunger even though I was getting the same amount of calories,
Hmm.
but it was from that lack of sleep and which
Yeah.
affected my emotions and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very underrated right there, right? Is people coming in and saying, I'm struggling with sugar cravings. I feel like I have no control or self discipline. It's not about that. It's physiological that your body is going to crave those things when sleep and stress are not in check and your hormones are out of balance. So that's a great example. I also, maybe it's like jet lag too, but that's just adding to the fact that if you didn't sleep enough, that's going to impact like your food choices.
Yeah, definitely. I want to dive even deeper into the emotional part of it. What do most dietitians get wrong when it comes to emotional eating?
Dietitians historically have been trained in hospital and clinical settings, right? So we started working in ICUs doing tube feeding or TPN, which is feeding through the vein, right? And so higher critical care cases, and then also patients that maybe came in for an inpatient visit and were in a hospital bed and we could speak to them for a couple minutes. So dietitians' roles as nutrition educators and as nutrition medical nutrition therapists and counselors, that's evolved more recently, and I think the public is slowly realizing, oh, my insurance covers my dietitian, right? I don't need to pay crazy amounts out of pocket anymore. It's more accessible, and dietitians are getting more training in the pieces of, more of like therapeutic modalities to help patients and help them get to where they want to be. So it really is important to, if you're looking for a provider that you want, for a dietitian that you want to be trained in all of these pieces, to ask those questions. Do we focus on the emotional side? Do you have, what's your training like? Because it's not all the same. And I think a lot of dietitians that come from more of a clinical setting or haven't had this training, there's a lot of pieces we're missing the mark on, right? We're not asking the questions about past eating behaviors, past dieting behaviors, trauma, really diving in and interviewing that patient in a way where you collect as much information as possible to help them. If it's very surface level, or in the past, dietitians have had maybe 15, 20 minutes to meet with a patient, that's not a lot of time to dive in. You're going to miss all these factors to truly help the patient. So you can help them to an extent, right? You can provide some recommendations, but you're really missing going deeper into their lives and learning all of these things about them. That's only going to help you as a dietitian provide better care for them. So it's getting better. There's more training being done. A lot of universities are adding these things in for dietitians, more counseling skills, but I think there's a long way to go to get dietitians up to speed to be able to tackle these pieces when they're working with their patients.
Okay, that's really great to hear. What's the difference between there's dietitians and there's nutritionists and there's naturopaths and then there's health coaches, which I could put myself in that category.
Mhm.
So how do you know who's the right person to go to? And is there a right person? Like I know we're looking at nutrition and diet, but we also want to look at all the other aspects as far as
Mhm.
holistic health and make sure everything is really looked at. So is there a right type of profession to look at?
Dietitians are Dietitians can bill insurance. Nutritionists tend to not be able to, or health coaches tend to not be able to. There might be some shifts in that in the future going forward. But the difference with dietitians is it's more of a, if you think about a hospital, right, and you have a healthcare team, you have speech therapists, a social worker, a doctor, a nurse, the ICU person, right? There's this whole team, and historically, like I mentioned, dietitians fit into that team as healthcare providers, as someone on the team goes to meetings, touches base about the nutrition aspect for the patient. So a dietitian is trained in what's called medical nutrition therapy, where basically, our schooling and training is similar to like a nurse, right? We have like some clinical training and then obviously the degree, we take an exam. That being said, though, a dietitian might not be right for somebody that wants to go on, or maybe the, it has to be the right dietitian that focuses on this, somebody that wants to go in more of a naturopathic route, or a health coach that focuses on something specific, or maybe they just, yeah, relate to that person. You obviously want to work with somebody that you're going to relate to and want to keep working with, want to stay engaged with for sessions. And I don't think there's necessarily a right answer. The biggest piece is dietitians being able to bill insurance and have that chronic condition training if you're somebody that is newly diagnosed with diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, something that you want to work on, with a trained professional that's maybe done some clinical work. But health coaches, naturopaths, right? That might be a better fit for someone that's like, hey, I've already tried that. I don't want to go that route, and I want to go down this path with somebody that takes a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, that's gotta be huge for people that think like that they have to do it on their own, that they have no idea that they could actually go to someone and get that one-on-one help and have their insurance pay
Hmm.
for it.
Yeah, it's pretty new. I would say new, in the last like 5 years or so after COVID, that there's more coverage. Most of the patients we work with don't have session limits, so they are able to see us, right, as long as it's medically necessary, and we're continuing to work on things with them. And so it's a huge accessibility piece. I think in the past, the idea was always, oh, I can't afford this, or it's not a priority right now, so I'm not going to pay toward it. So I think it really just opens up a lot of doors and chances for people to be able to get that professional help without worrying about the cost.
You talked about behaviors and eating patterns. That's something that you had to learn yourself when you were younger. What's the science behind that? So what's the science behind like why people fall back into old eating patterns?
Everything we do, right, is based on habits that we build. So when you wake up in the morning, if you wake up with an alarm, snoozing that alarm or getting up to the alarm, that's a habit. Brushing your teeth is a habit. Like putting on your shoes before you go to the gym is a habit. And so our habits are created just from the way that we've kind of like lived our lives, or these things that we do every day. And that includes our eating and exercising habits and our behaviors. But habits can also be started from when we were, really young, and the way we were raised, or the school we went to, or the jobs we had. So when we have these habits that are created, you can't get rid of a habit, but you can replace and you can change it, right? So with habits, there's, um, a trigger, cue, and reward. And when you change one of those pieces and you get the same reward, like I am feeling stressed, so instead of eating, I'm going to go for a walk. And the reward is that my stress levels reduce and I feel better. When you begin to make those changes, that's when you can really begin to see like larger long-term changes in your life. So it's really like those small micro habits that add up to big changes. But if we try to just change everything at once and we don't slow down and focus on just a couple things, that's when most people are going to struggle. They're going to fall back into the same old routines, old habits. So my advice is always to start with one or two, what's the lowest hanging fruit that you can do? One or two things that you can do to change, or habits you can shift and alter a little bit to help get you where you want to be. But we know that these behaviors are not just lack of discipline or lack of, not putting yourself first. It's a lot of the time related to just kind of history, like our history of our behaviors that we need to start to slowly change.
Yeah, I found not only with myself, but with other people that I've talked to in my life or people that I've worked with, is that a lot
Hmm.
of the patterns are emotional. So it's like they go hand in hand because a lot of the eating patterns they might have to do with like comfort type foods or foods that
Right.
bring them back to that started with childhood and are maybe tied to a certain memory. And so I don't know, like sometimes it's like what comes first? Like, do you need to address that emotional aspect that's tied to the food, or can you just kind of like power your way through it and just like, make the decision, I'm not gonna eat ice cream before bed anymore? Or like, do you need to actually figure out where that started?
Yeah, that's a great thought and question, because creating the awareness is always step one, right? So people maybe don't even realize that there's an emotion tied to the behavior they're doing. And so what we usually recommend when somebody comes in and is struggling with emotional eating, stress eating, feels like they have binge episodes or they're kind of tried it all and continue to struggle, is we have them keep like a food or mood journal or a food log, where they write down how they're feeling around certain eating episodes or certain, before and after a certain meal. And that way they're creating the awareness. So maybe the idea or the long-term goal is to stop having the ice cream before bed, but going back and saying, okay, let's start with creating the awareness, like, how do I feel before I grab that ice cream? What's the reason for it? Am I searching for something else? Like, what are the emotions in this moment? Then you're able to say, okay, am I eating this ice cream because I'm hungry? Maybe, right? Maybe you are hungry. Or is there something else going on that we can tackle? So I would say they can kind of both be worked on at the same time. Like, you can reduce that behavior while also figuring out what the emotion is. But I think you have to create that awareness because it's really hard to just go and change all your habits at once without really knowing like what the reason is that you're doing
Hmm. Yeah, and it's like you could be on autopilot. Like it might
that.
literally just be a habit. It's like going
Right,
to brush your teeth. You could do it with your eyes shut, and you could even
right.
forget that you did it because it's just so automatic. And yeah, so it's it's like slowing down, and yeah, like you said, it's like asking like, why am I doing this?
Hmm. Yeah, and that seems to be really powerful for people. Like, they'll come back on a second, third session and say, I never even considered that this was what's going on. I'm avoiding this 3 p.m. meeting that I have. And so I'm going out and getting coffee at 2 o'clock every day just to go out and kind of change, reduce the stress I have around it. So we've seen all sorts of things with patients. Sometimes it's avoidance of something that you don't want to deal with. It could be stress, it could be another emotion. But really putting those pieces together is step one. And then moving on to changing the habits, like I mentioned before.
And that's so funny because that's something I noticed about myself too, is like I'll start working on something. It's like something I don't necessarily really want to work on. And then all of a sudden
Hmm.
I'll feel like I'm hungry. And I'll be like, no,
Right,
like I just ate an hour ago or something.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the classic like pacing around and going back to the kitchen and the cabinets and opening it. Like, I
Mhm.
find myself doing that. I'm like, I looked at this half an hour ago and there's nothing even in here that I want. So definitely, you don't even notice you're doing these things. It's kind of like picking up our phones. I've been noticing, like, I will pick up my phone, like look to see if there's notification and put it down, even without a ding or without a sound. Totally
Mhm.
habit, right? Like, probably doing that multiple times in an hour, not even realizing it. And it's
Mhm.
the same thing with our eating habits. So it's really, it is hard, but it takes that next like layer level of awareness to realize, okay, this is what I'm doing. Or I didn't even know that I walk to the kitchen 5 times a day because I work from home. That's a big one too that we see, especially after COVID. Everybody working from home is like, oh, I have to work away from the kitchen, but I am still walking there. I'm noticing I'm like opening the fridge for no reason.
Yeah, gosh, now I'm thinking of like if we look at it even deeper, I wonder, I mean, it must be tied to the chemicals that are released in the brain, like, because we are so addicted and accustomed to being hit with dopamine
Mhm.
just over and over again
Right.
by checking our phone and getting like alerts. And if we're not getting that, then yeah, maybe we can get it from some food or just somewhere. And so it's like now our
Hmm.
bodies are constantly searching to like get that hit and
Fill
fill
it.
that
Yeah.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now that we've determined that, what can we do? What is so okay, how do you build a habit that actually sticks when motivation fades?
So the whole Motivation Monday started, right? That whole thing, like, never miss a Monday, like, start your week off strong. I
Mm,
think there's absolutely truth to crossing off something on a to-do list or a checklist, right? Or like celebrating something you did. But motivation is not going to it ebbs and flows. It's not something that you can rely on. You have to build real habits because you might be feeling great for 4 weeks. You get up, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do my exercise, I'm going to plan my meals, I'm going to cook. What happens on week 5 when you didn't sleep well the night before, or you had a tough day at work, or you're struggling with a family member or something's going on? motivation is going to completely drop, and you have to rely on building those habits, having those habits built in order to continue to do those things. So, how do you do it? A lot of work, a lot of time, but there's a lot of positives that can come pretty quickly. So, I had mentioned the woman that we started working with, we've been working with her for about 6 months, and a couple weeks in, she felt better, right? What we do when we work with someone is we say, what are your long-term goals and what are your short-term goals? And we're going to develop a roadmap to help you get there. And then there's high level of accountability. There's tailored recommendations to you. We look at the barriers, we look at your lifestyle, your routines, like what's possible. And so it is about doing the work, but more so than doing the work, it's understanding and realizing, what does that work look like for you? Doing the work doesn't mean you have to spend 5 hours cooking or 10 hours at the gym or whatever. Doing the work might be spending 10 minutes a day sitting and saying, how am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? That's doing the work, right? Because you're taking the emotional response, like you mentioned, right, of stress or boredom or like avoiding this task at work I don't want to do, and responding with food or, something of the like for that dopamine hit. So
Mhm.
doing the work is just creating that awareness and then having a goal around it of, I'm just going to sit here and like let this emotion pass. Or am I hungry? Okay, I am hungry. That's why I'm walking to the kitchen. Why am I hungry if I ate an hour ago? Can I work on what I ate for lunch? Maybe I didn't eat something that fuels me enough. So I think that that's how to get there, but without saying doing the work is going to be really, it's not easy, but it can be simple with the right support, and you can take baby steps to get there. So it might take time, but like you're going to be able to get to all those longer term goals by building those micro habits, like I called them.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is slowing down, going inward, asking yourself questions.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great summary to start.
How do you respond to someone who wants quick results over long-term change?
I think really diving into one, like what does that mean for them? Like quick results in what sense? Like, is it weight loss? Is it they feel so drained, so tired, just like waking up, not feeling good? Is it like inflammation and bloating? Figuring out or learning what is a quick fix, like what is a win for you. And then also diving into what they've done in the past. So if somebody comes to us, this happens, very frequently, and if somebody comes, they've had history of chronic dieting, they've maybe struggled their whole lives for whatever their goal is, if it's weight loss, or if it's, somebody that comes in that's struggling with PCOS or struggling with diabetes. We want to see what they've done in the past and kind of review whether that worked for them or not long term, right? So they might say, I don't want to do something long term, I want a quick fix. But if we dive into asking them, did that work in the past? Like, is that actually sustainable for you? I don't think people spend time unpacking the history of their dieting behaviors or the history of what they've tried before. And once they do that, they realize, oh, I'm not going to, maybe I don't want a quick fix, or maybe let's change the definition of a quick fix and say, my, energy is so low, I just want to wake up and feel better every day. Okay, great. That is a more of a quote unquote like quick fix that we can work on first. But losing a lot of weight or getting, in out of a diabetic range in terms of your labs, that's going to take longer. And if they've tried to crash diet before and seen it doesn't work, they're kind of proving to themselves, okay, maybe this isn't the answer. So it's really like listening to the patient, educating them, and then truly just hearing what their needs are at the time. What is that quick fix? And can we help them get there? Maybe in a way that's different than a traditional like quick fix as people know it.
Yeah, I know throughout my life and my health journey, I was always switching. So I would start on one path and try one thing.
Hmm.
And if I didn't see changes fast enough, okay, let me jump over here and I'm going to try doing it this way. And it's just you could just keep doing that, but I found you just need to pick one. It's not like one's going to work faster or better than another.
Hmm.
It's just staying on the same, like choosing the
Right.
same path and taking those steps and doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, the consistency really is key. Like, no matter what you're going to do, if you're not consistent, it's not going to work. It's like anything in your life. It's, oh, I'm going to clean out my house a little bit every weekend so that I can get rid of clutter by the end of the year. Well, if you do it once and then you don't do it again, the end of the year is going to come and that's nothing would have changed, right? So consistency with really anything we decide to do is key, including habits. You can't change a habit and develop a healthier habit that you want to without like working on it and doing it. It doesn't have to be every single day, but can you hit it 3 times a week? And that consistency is what's going to move you forward toward those long-term goals.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like people get very bored, and um
Hmm.
and I think also this is why gym memberships, like, they, have a huge spike in the new year, and the
Right.
gym is packed, and then it's like people fall off very quickly because it's like, well, I've been going for a month. But I mean, with anything,
Hmm.
like, it goes back to the habits. Like, you have to make it part of
Right.
who you are, and yeah, to actually see the lasting change that you're after.
The other thing too with that is when you develop habits, it has to fit into your lifestyle. So developing a habit that you know that you can't realistically do, like if you have, 3 kids at home and you have to get them ready for school and you wake up at 7 and you have to leave the house by 8, adding in going to the gym in the morning, right? Unless you're going at like 5, 6 a.m., that's not going to work. And if you are someone that wants to go at 5, 6 a.m., you have to go backwards and say, well, do I like going to bed early? Or am I just going to sacrifice sleep and go to bed at midnight and wake up at 5 and go to the gym? Well, one, that's probably not super sustainable. There are people that do it, but then, I might argue, okay, but how's your sleep to reach your goals, right? Like, are you resting enough? Are you sleeping properly? And so the things that you create as habits to work on have to be sustainable because how can you be consistent if you're already developed, you're like setting yourself up to just um, not be able to meet those targets or those goals. So setting yourself up in a way that's doable, even if that's a 10-minute walk a couple times a week, right? That's a great place to start if you know that you can do that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was another point that came up, is like, that's something else I would do, is I would push myself so hard for
Hmm.
a few days thinking like, oh, I want to reach this goal, I want to fit in this outfit. And then
Right.
I would either injure myself or I'd be so sore that I couldn't move for a couple days.
Right.
And yeah, you have to find something that's sustainable, and you're not supposed to beat your body up. You're supposed to feel good after a meal
Right.
or after working out. Like, you shouldn't be starving, you shouldn't be hurting.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I did want to get your take on GLP-1 medications. Okay, quick side note. I have to share this with you. Whenever I'm on the go or I'm getting that I need something but don't know what feeling between meals, I just pop a few spirulina tablets from Energy Bits. Honestly, they have saved me so many times. They give me clean energy and I feel good for hours. No crash, no junk. What I love is that each little tablet is just one ingredient, 1 calorie, and packed with 40 vitamins and minerals. It's wild. People even use them to support their skin and weight goals too, which is a nice bonus. So if you want something quick, clean, and kind of magical, check them out. You can go to energybits.com and use the code HEALWITHIN for 20% off. That's energybits.com and code HEALWITHIN at checkout to receive 20% off your entire order. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, so we've seen a really big uptick. I think GLP-1s in general, right, in the last 6, 12 months have increased for the general public, but a lot of our patients come in, or a lot of people, new people come in to work with us that have just started a GLP-1. Maybe they're increasing their dose, or they're weaning off of GLP-1, and maybe they've been on it for the last 6, 12 months. And the biggest piece with GLP-1s, it's a very powerful tool and it's helped a lot of people we've worked with. Personally, I know people that are on GLP-1s that have found it to be extremely helpful in reducing food noise, helping with weight loss, reducing inflammation. That being said, the biggest piece is working on developing back to the habits, right? Back to behavior change, developing these things that you can continue to have when you get off of the medication. And also, even for the medications to work as the most effective in the most effective way, there's things that you want to be focusing on, right? Like you want to move your body, you want to make sure you're eating enough protein and doing strength training to make sure you don't lose muscle mass. You want to eat enough fiber, healthy, balanced diet, because if not, you're probably going to see an increase in symptoms of side effects, and maybe not feel great. You might have like GI pain, or you might struggle with indigestion. And so it is important that while you're on it, to reduce symptoms and make sure it's working effectively, you build healthy habits, but then more so afterwards, right? Like you don't want to get off the medication and worry about gaining the weight back or going back to feeling not feeling your best. And so that's where, our dietitians come into play, of really working with someone on building long-term change while using the GLP-1 medication as a tool.
You're supportive of them, just dependent on how.
Yeah, I definitely think, it depends on the person. I absolutely don't think they're for everyone. I think that's a lot of the patients we see using them, they're good fits, they're good candidates for them, right? And that's like the main population that I'm seeing day to day, including like friends and family I know that are on the medications. I don't think it's for everyone. So in terms of like, would I say blanketly everybody should be on a GLP-1? No, I think it's very dependent. But in terms of what I've seen for the patients that we work with that are on them, it's been very helpful for them.
Maybe I don't know enough about them, but I guess I'm just curious as to could it have any type of negative effects when people get off of them?
So absolutely, in terms of gaining weight back, or not having built-in habits, right? Like it's not a tool that's going to just change your habits for you or your lifestyle for you. It's going to help. Like everything is a tool, everything in moderation. So in terms of it being, something that people rely on forever for the rest of their lives, I don't think that's the goal. I think people want to be on them for a certain amount of time, hit the goals that they want to hit, reduce inflammation, whatever they're on it for. And then I think the biggest piece is, and this is something that, more providers like doctors and insurance companies are cracking down on, is having a support system. So I think the risk reduces when you're working with a provider that can help you make long-term changes that you can do, once you're off the medication.
Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you feel is important to make sure that the listeners hear?
I think the biggest piece I would like to say is, these things I mentioned, right? It takes time, it's work, but starting, just start small. If you are somebody that's been contemplating getting professional support, or maybe didn't have a good experience with a past provider in terms of your nutrition, health, weight loss, whatever your goal is, I think it's really important to remember that you don't have to do everything at once, but just starting, like you're going to be farther in 3, 6, 12 months if you start now rather than waiting, especially we're like right on the holiday season, kind of cusp of the, going into Halloween and Thanksgiving and all the holidays. And so this is the time of year where people kind of start to think about these things or talk about these things going into the new year. So I would say biggest piece of advice is, you don't have to do everything at once, but just start, even if that's a small, step forward in the right direction. Because those little changes do add up over time.
Yeah, very well said. I do have two closing questions for you, but before I ask them, where can the listeners go to learn more?
Yeah, so it's just geteverlong.com. So GETEVERLONG, like the Foo Fighter song Everlong. On our website, we can read a little bit about our approach, the conditions we see, and you can confirm your insurance coverage in a minute. So really quick and easy if you're looking to work with a dietitian covered by your insurance.
It's really amazing that, I mean, I really love what you're doing and that you created this because, yeah, it helps so many people that, like I mentioned before, like people don't know. I had no idea, and
Yeah,
I'm in this world. And so
right.
this will, yeah, I'm sure you're helping tons of people get healthier who didn't think that they could afford to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still new. Like people, like you said, still don't know, especially even in the wellness and fitness industry. Like we talk to a lot of people, like you're saying, that work in the space. They're like, really? I didn't even know this, even for themselves. They want to take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. My first closing question for you is what is your number one health tip? So whether that is diet and nutrition, mindset, emotional, spiritual, just the one piece of advice you would like everyone to know.
Hmm. I think, oh, that's hard. There's so many. Just giving yourself grace. I think I've been working on my own health journey for years, and there's days and weeks that in the last couple weeks, I normally go to workout classes 3, 4 times a week. I haven't been to one in a couple weeks, right? Just due to like travel, different things going on. It's fine. It's not, that's not going to end my journey. So giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to just be human, is really important. I think people have the all or nothing mindset, which causes them to just do nothing, right? Kind of like stay in paralysis. So give yourself grace. It's not going to be perfect. Your journey is lifelong. You're not going to just reach every goal in a year and then never have to work on it again. So we've never seen that. There's always people, even at their goals, that struggle with maintenance and need that support then. So that's totally normal and it's okay.
Yes, yes. Give yourself grace. I love that so much. My last question for you is going to be a more personal one. You get to choose a number 1 through 100, and that will correlate to the question.
How about 18?
Have you ever lost someone or something that shaped who you are today?
That's a tough one. I think I would say more something. So I've kind of had a like non-typical route in terms of my career in different businesses. And before Everlong, was working in, with a couple different businesses that ended up like I closed them down and ended up not really going anywhere. And I think I have a lot of lessons that I've taken into Everlong and personally, professionally that I've learned from there. So I would say that's losing. I mean, it is losing a thing in terms of like losing a business that you worked on growing. So I would say that more so than someone. I don't think I could relate with that as much. But definitely just taking lessons I learned from losing those couple businesses and saying, what can I do differently? And also just learning like the failure is part of it, right? It's just like part of the journey.
Yeah, there's what is that saying? It's something about how there's no failures, only lessons.
hmm It's true. I mean, I called it a failure, right? But it isn't. It's really a lesson.
Yeah, the only way to success or the path to success is paved with failure or something.
Yeah, yeah. I think you got it. Those like two
Yeah,
different quotes. Yeah.
yeah. I'll probably just have to edit that out. Thank you so much, AD. This has been lovely. Yeah, it's been, I mean, I could talk about nutrition and diet all day long. So thank you for coming on. And I'm excited to share this with the listeners and get this information out there so that they can contact their health insurance and get with a dietitian and get the help they need.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.